Welcome to day 28 of our worship journey. Today I set up the camera in a little bit of an artsy way. I came out and saw this land, this yard that my husband is working on. This part of the lawn wasn't beautiful like the other part of the lawn where we had some lush grass in it. And so it was stony and had tree roots in it and weeds. And so Jim has been tilling this up and working it, and he's about to put some topsoil on it and add some grass seed so that we can have beautiful lush grass over there as well. And when I saw it this morning, I thought, this is how I feel God has been working with me this morning as I'm preparing for our study. And although we still have the beautiful lake in the background, there's some things going on that I'll try to explain to you. I started out wanting to, I felt inclined to study corporate worship this morning. And so I had a specific Old Testament account that I went in search of, and I can't find it. And I will find it, but for another day. But in the process of looking for it, it led me to what I thought was the first example of corporate worship in Exodus 19. But as I looked around, a couple chapters back, there is, and maybe we would consider it praise versus worship, which sometimes is a line that gets just too distinct that it seems trivial. But in Exodus 15, I believe it is, there is the songs of Moses and Miriam after they have escaped the Egyptians chasing the Israelites through the Red Sea, that the Red Sea is parted and they get through. And of course, when they get through the other side, they're so grateful to God that they're alive that they burst into song and praise. And so there's a lot of praise and worship in the Old Testament that gives us all sorts of examples. Moses and Miriam's songs being some of the very earliest large group or more corporate worshiping and singing. But I wanted to just read to you today out of Exodus 19. I'm going to read the whole chapter. There's so much symbolism in this that I won't be able to explain it all. I don't understand it all. But as you listen to it through the eyes of the New Testament and what Jesus has done for us, you'll see a lot of representations of the New Testament in this account. I think in a lot of the Old Testament. So let's start in verse 1 of Exodus 19. In the 3rd month after the Israelites left Egypt, on the very day they came to the desert of Sinai. After they set out for Rephidim, they entered the desert of Sinai, and Israel camped there in the desert in front of the mountain. Then Moses went up to God, and the Lord called him to him from the mountain and said, "This is what you are to say to the house of Jacob and what you are to tell the people of Israel. You yourselves have seen what I did to Egypt, and how I carried you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Now, if you obey me fully and keep my covenant, then out of all nations you will be my treasured possession." I always love that reference, treasured possession. To be a treasured possession by God. That's an amazing thought. "Although the whole earth is mine, you will be for me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words you are to speak to the Israelites." So Moses went back and summoned the elders of the people and set before them all the words the Lord had commanded him to speak. The people all responded together, "We will do everything the Lord has said." So Moses brought their answer back to the Lord. We all know that they very quickly didn't do all that the Lord had said, but perhaps their intentions were good, as ours often are. The Lord said to Moses, "I'm going to come down to you in a dense cloud, so that the people will hear me speaking with you and will always put their trust in you." Then Moses told the Lord what the people had said. And the Lord said to Moses, "Go to the people and consecrate them today and tomorrow. Have them wash their clothes and be ready by the 3rd day, because on that day the Lord will come down on Mount Sinai in the sight of all the people. Put limits for the people around the mountain and tell them, Be careful that you do not go up the mountain or touch the foot of it. Whoever touches the mountain shall surely be put to death. He shall surely be stoned or shot with arrows. Not a hand is to be laid on him. Whether man or animal, he shall not be permitted to live. Only when the ram's horn sounds a long blast may they go up to the mountain. After Moses had gone down the mountain to the people, he consecrated them, and they washed their clothes. Then he said to the people, "Prepare yourselves for the third day. Abstain from sexual relations." On the morning of the third day, there was thunder and lightning, with a thick cloud over the mountain and a very loud trumpet blast. Everyone in the camp trembled. Then Moses led the people out of the camp to meet with God, and they stood at the foot of the mountain. Mount Sinai was covered with smoke because the Lord descended on it in fire. The smoke billowed up from it like smoke from a furnace. The whole mountain trembled violently, and the sound of the trumpet grew louder and louder. Then Moses spoke, and the voice of God answered him. The Lord descended to the top of Mount Sinai and called Moses to the top of the mountain. So Moses went up, and the Lord said to him, "Go down and warn the people so they do not force their way through to see the Lord, and many of them perish. Even the priests who approach the Lord must consecrate themselves, or the Lord will break out against them." Moses said to the Lord, The people cannot come out. The people cannot come up Mount Sinai because you yourself warned us. Put limits around the mountain and set it apart as holy. The Lord replied, "Go down and bring Aaron up with you, but the priests and the people must not force their way through to come up to the Lord, or he will break out against them." So Moses went down to the people and told them. And then the next chapter begins the 10 Commandments and the establishment of the law that God gives to Moses. So here were 3 of my takeaway points as I read through that and studied that and read through Matthew Henry's commentary this morning. And this was not what I thought we were going to talk about today. So it's been very interesting. And as I said, my heart has been tilled up a little bit, and I feel like God is teaching me some corrections or some new ideas. So the first point that I wrote down that we should pay attention to is that in this moment and in all moments of our interactions with God, God initiates the interaction. Matthew Henry says this. I love these words. The true maker and first mover of the covenant is God himself. Nothing was said nor done by this stupid, unthinking people themselves toward this settlement. Matthew Henry pulls no punches. Nothing was said or done by the stupid, unthinking people themselves toward the settlement. No motion made. No petition put up for God's favor. But this blessed charter was granted ex mero moto. And I looked that up. It's a Latin phrase that means on one's mere motion, or an action that's taken voluntarily and without external influence or prompting. So this blessed charter was granted ex mero moto, purely out of God's own goodwill. Note that in our dealings with God, free grace anticipates us with the blessings of goodness, and all our comfort is owing not to our knowing God, but rather to our being known of him, as it says in Galatians 4:9. We love him, visit him, and covenant with him because he first loved us, visited us, and covenanted with us. God is the Alpha and therefore must be the Omega. I think that's very profound, that any interaction that we have with God is because he called us there first. The second point I wanted to point out was the idea of the Israelites preparing themselves, taking 2 days to prepare themselves. And specifically, it mentions washing their clothes a couple times. Matthew Henry mentions this preparing as being representative, as they're preparing, that they are thinking about their sinfulness. They are giving symbolism of them having their sins washed away. And so again, there's lots of representation in the steps that God is speaking to them and calling them to do of what he's doing in the spiritual realm. So them washing their clothes and preparing themselves, the idea of us preparing our hearts for God and knowing that he will cleanse us and wash away our sins. And then the third point, which is probably the one that's impacted me most strongly and that I'm going to spend some time thinking about, is how God establishes limits. And again, I want to read what Matthew Henry says. Even the priests or princes, the heads of the houses of their family, who officiated for their respective families, and therefore are said to come near to the Lord at other times, must now keep their distance and conduct themselves with a great deal of caution. Moses pleads that they needed not to have any further orders given them, effectual care being taken already to prevent any intrusions. But God, who knew their willfulness and presumption, and what was now in the hearts of some of them, hastens him down with this charge, that neither the priests nor the people should offer to force the lines that were set to come up unto the Lord, but Moses and Aaron only, the men whom God delighted to honor. Observe what it was that God forbade them, breaking through to gaze. Enough was provided to awaken their consciences, but they were not allowed to gratify their vain curiosity. They might see, but not gaze. Some of them probably were desirous to see some similitude, that they might know how to make an image of God, which he took care to prevent, for they saw no manner of similitude. That's in Deuteronomy 4:5. Note, this is the part that has me thinking. In divine things, we must not covet to know more than God would have us know. And he has allowed us much as is good for us. He has allowed us as much as is good for us. A desire of forbidden knowledge was the ruin of our first parents, referring to Adam and Eve eating the fruit from the knowledge of the tree of, eating fruit from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, instead of only eating from the tree of life that was in the garden. So a desire of forbidden knowledge was the ruin of our first parents. Those that would be wise above what is written and intrude into those things which they have not seen need this admonition, that they break not through to gaze. I'm not sure what that means. Although, I have some idea, but I really am going to spend some time pondering what it means to not break through for more knowledge than we are actually appointed to have. So my summary of all of this is that God initiates, dictates preparation, and defines the limits even during our worship times, because he knows us, our humanity, and our tendencies. And my question that I wrote at the end is it possible that our worship, and I put that in air quotes because is it not worship? Is it possible that our worship at times is not what God has asked? Have we gone past the boundaries? And as I think of that, what does that mean? I'm not sure. But there's just a sense of some profound holiness, again, in the whole idea of worship, which is why I've entitled our Day 28 teaching, our study, God Directs Worship.